Let's read Letters from a Father to His Daughter. It is a collection of letters written by Mr. Jawaharlal Nehru to his daughter Indira Nehru. To Indira, to whom these letters were written. I have sourced this book from the Internet Archives. Forward. These letters were written to my daughter Indra in the summer of 1928, when she was in the Himalayas at Mussoorie and I was in the plains below. They were personal letters addressed to a little girl 10 years of age. But friends whose advice I value have seen some virtue in them and have suggested that I might place them before a wider audience. I do not know if other boys and girls will appreciate them, but I hope that such of them as read these letters may gradually begin to think of this world of ours as a large family of nations. And I hope also, though with diffidence, that they may find in the reading of them a fraction of the pleasure that I had in the writing of them. The letters end abruptly. The long summer had come to an end, and Indra had to come down from the mountains, and there was no Mussoorie or other hill station for her in the summer of 1929. The last three letters begin a new period and are somewhat out of place by themselves, but I have included them as there is little chance of my adding to them. I realize that the letters being in English, their circle of appeal is limited. The fault is entirely mine. I can only remedy it now by having a translation made. A Hindi translation is being prepared and, if all goes well, may soon see the light of day. Jawaharlal Nehru, Allahabad, November 1929. The Sphinx of Egypt. It's a photograph of the Sphinx, which is in Egypt. We can also see a pyramid. First, the book of nature. When you and I are together, you often ask me questions about many things, and I try to answer them. Now that you are at Mussoorie and I am in Allahabad, we cannot have these talks. I am therefore going to write to you from time to time short accounts of the story of our earth and the many countries, great and small, in which it is divided. You have read a little about English history and Indian history, but England is only a little island, and India, though a big country, is only a small part of the earth's surface. If we want to know something about the story of this world of ours, we must think of all the countries and all the people that have inhabited it, and not merely of one little country where we may have been born. I am afraid I can only tell you very little in these letters of mine, but that little I hope will interest you and make you think of the world as a whole and of other peoples in it as our brothers and sisters. When you grow up, you will read about the story of the earth and her peoples in fat books, and you will find it more interesting than any other story or novel that you may have read. You know, of course, that our earth is very, very old, millions and millions of years old. And for a long, long time, there were no men or women living in it. Before the men came, there were only animals, and before the animals, there was a time when no kind of life existed on the earth. It is difficult to imagine this world of ours, which is so full today of all kinds of animals and men, to be without them. But scientists and those who have studied and thought a great deal about these matters tell us that there was a time when the earth was too hot for any living being to live on it. And if we read their books and study the rocks and the fossils, the remains of old animals, we can ourselves see that this must have been so. You read history in books, but in old times when men did not exist, surely no books could have been written. How then can we find out what happened then? We cannot merely sit down and imagine everything. This would be very interesting, for we could imagine anything we wanted to, and would thus make up the most beautiful fairy tales. But this need not be true, as it would not be based on any facts that we had seen. But although we have no books written in those far off days, fortunately we have some things which tell us a great deal, as well almost as a book would. We have rocks and mountains, and seas and stars, and rivers and deserts, and fossils of old animals. These and other like things are our books for the earth's early story. And the real way to understand this story is not merely to read about it in other people's books, but to go to the great book of nature itself. You will, I hope, soon begin to learn how to read this from the rocks and mountains. Imagine how fascinating it is. Every little stone that you see lying in the road or on the mountainside may be a little page in nature's book, and may be able to tell you something if you only knew how to read it. To be able to read any language, Hindi or Urdu or English, you have to learn its alphabet. So also you must learn the alphabet of nature before you can read her story in her books of stone and rock. Even now perhaps you know a little how to read this. If you see a little round shiny pebble, does it not tell you something? How did it get round and smooth and shiny without any corners or rough edges? If you break a big rock into small bits, each bit is rough and has corners and rough edges. It is not at all like a round smooth pebble. How then like the pebble becomes so round and smooth and shiny? It will tell you its story if you have good eyes to see and ears to hear it. It tells you that once upon a time, it may be long ago, it was a bit of a rock, just like the bit you may break from a big rock or stone with plenty of edges and corners. Probably it rested on some mountainside. Then came the rain and washed it down to the little valley where it found a mountain stream, which pushed it on till it reached a little river, and the little river took it to the big river. And all the while it rolled at the bottom of the river, and its edges were worn away and its rough surface made smooth and shiny. So it became the pebble that you see. Somehow the river left it behind and you found it. If the river had carried it on, it would have become smaller and smaller, till at last it became a grain of sand and joined its brothers at the seaside to make a beautiful beach where little children can play and make castles out of the sand. If a little pebble can tell you so much, how much more could we learn from all the rocks and mountains and the many other things we see around us?